Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the voice of the universe, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical, seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. There's a strange kind of silence that lives inside Adventure Time. It's not empty. Not lonely, but full, like the pause before a song begins. Even in its loudest, silliest moments, there's something underneath. A quiet hum, a feeling that someone or something is gently telling us the story. Not shouting it, not performing it, but whispering it like a bedtime tale carried by the wind. When you really listen, you can feel it, that unseen voice guiding the rhythm of everything. It's in the way the camera lingers on the land of Ooh, how it floats softly over mountains that once were cities, over ruins that still remember laughter. It's in the way characters pause, stare at the horizon, and for a moment seem to understand they're part of something much larger than themselves. The show has always had this invisible storyteller, never named, never shown, yet somehow always present. It's as if Ooh itself is remembering. Every story begins with an echo. And in Adventure Time, those echoes are everywhere, in the title cards, in the old recordings, BMO plays, in the mysterious graybles that appear like fragments of forgotten folklore. Even the theme song feels like a memory being replayed, a cheerful melody recorded long ago and rediscovered after the end of the world. That's what makes Adventure Time so unique. It doesn't just tell a story, it remembers one. Each episode feels like it's been passed down through centuries, told and retold by countless voices until the edges blur and the truth becomes something softer, something dreamlike. Maybe that's why the world of Ooh feels so alive. Because deep down, it isn't just a setting, it's a storyteller. Every tree, every ruin, every creature feels like it's participating in a retelling of an ancient memory. When Finn and Jake set off on another strange adventure, it feels less like something new and more like a familiar dream repeating itself, a ritual of rediscovery. If you think about it, the entire series begins in the middle of a story that's already been told countless times. The great mushroom one, that silent catastrophe, has already ended, long before we ever meet our heroes. The world has already fallen and healed and fallen again. The ruins that dot the landscape are like half-erased sentences in an enormous book, reminders that this isn't the first version of the story. We are simply arriving in one of its later retellings. More, and yet the tone isn't mournful. It's gentle, curious, as if the voice telling us this story doesn't judge what came before. It simply observes, records, and wonders. That's why even the saddest parts of Adventure Time still feel comforting. There's always a sense that everything, every heartbreak, every loss, is part of something cyclical and meaningful. It's not tragedy for tragedy's sake. Oh, it's memory. Softly looping back on itself, the universe humming the same melody again in a different key. When we watch Adventure Time, we're not just hearing one story, we're hearing layers of them. The laughter of the past folded into the dreams of the present. It's as though every age of Ooh leaves behind a faint trace, and those traces weave together into something living, a kind of narrative consciousness that stretches across time. And somewhere inside that, hidden between frames and pauses, is the voice that connects it all. Maybe that's what makes the show's tone feel so timeless. Sometimes it sounds like a children's fable. Sometimes it sounds like the diary of a world remembering its own scars. And sometimes it feels like the cosmos itself is whispering, using the language of friendship, magic, and dreams to tell us something it has always known, that everything, in the end, is connected. This invisible storyteller isn't loud or proud. It doesn't announce itself, but it's there, in the smallest gestures, in BMO humming to themselves in the quiet, in Finn gazing at the night sky and feeling a pull he can't explain, in the way time moves strangely in the land of ooh, stretching and folding as though it's being replayed. It's a voice that doesn't need to be heard to be felt, a voice that seems older than ooh itself. The more you look for it, the more you notice how Adventure Time constantly acknowledges the act of storytelling. The Grable's episodes, for instance, aren't just stories. They're stories about stories, fragments of memory shown by Kuber, a being from a far future who speaks directly to the viewer. He calls us globers, as if we're ancient beings too, listening across time. Each tale he tells has a faint glow of nostalgia, as if these memories are precious relics of a vanished age. And when he ends his broadcasts with a calm farewell, it almost feels like he's continuing the work of that same cosmic narrator, passing the story forward, keeping it alive. Even the way time behaves in ooh feels deliberate, as though the storyteller is rearranging scenes like puzzle pieces. Flashbacks, dreams, and visions don't follow the logic of chronology. They move like memories, fuzzy at the edges, overlapping, more emotional than literal. Maybe that's because whoever is telling the story doesn't see time the way we do. To them, it's all happening at once. The rise of humanity, the fall of kingdoms, the laughter of two friends in a treehouse under a fading sun. It's all part of one eternal narrative, unfolding and refolding like waves against the same timeless shore. Sometimes I like to imagine that the storyteller of Adventure Time is sitting in some faraway corner of the cosmos, a quiet observer surrounded by starlight, remembering the world that once was. Their voice is soft, full of warmth, carrying the tone of someone who has seen the universe end and begin again countless times and still finds beauty in it. Maybe they're not even a person. Maybe it's the universe itself, humming to itself to stay awake a little longer. And maybe that's what we hear every time the theme song begins, the voice of existence retelling its favorite dream. The dream of ooh, the dream of friendship, the dream of time itself learning how to love what it's lost. That hum, that soft, ever-present vibration beneath every episode feels almost like breathing. The world of ooh exhales light, then inhales shadow, as if the story itself is alive. When we follow Finn and Jake across the rolling hills or into dark forests filled with strange creatures, we aren't just watching characters move through a setting. We're moving through memory, through layers of time pressed gently together. The grass, the ruins, the sky, they all seem to remember the days before the Mushroom War, before the land became strange and magical again. The unseen narrator feels like the keeper of those memories. Sometimes it's a voice of wonder, sometimes one of sadness, but it never speaks aloud. It guides with feeling, with atmosphere, with that strange sense that everything we're seeing already happened once long ago. It's as if the universe itself is dreaming about its own childhood. That's why so many of the show's stories begin with simple curiosity, a tiny moment that opens into something vast. Finn picks up a mysterious object. Jake follows. They think they're starting a small adventure, but soon they find themselves face to face with echoes of the old world, a forgotten robot, a ghost of a scientist, an artifact that once powered a civilization. Every object seems to whisper, "Remember me." And through that whisper, the voice of the universe speaks. Think about the way the show often lingers on quiet details. The rusted machines, the crumbling towers, the lonely fields of glass. None of these things are explained in haste. They're shown with care, as if the narrator is placing them gently before us, letting us feel their age and weight. It's storytelling that trusts silence, the kind that invites reflection rather than demands attention. Even the humor works that way. When the characters laugh, it feels warm and real, never forced. Laughter in Ooh has a kind of magic to it, as though it's repairing something unseen. It fills the empty spaces between ruins and echoes, proving that even in a broken world, joy still finds a way to exist. And somewhere behind that laughter, the silent storyteller smiles. It's easy to imagine this voice as something ancient, a remnant from before the war, or perhaps the collective consciousness of all who ever lived. Maybe it speaks through the land itself. Maybe every gust of wind that brushes the grass outside the tree fort carries a fragment of its speech. The characters don't hear it, not directly, but they respond to it in their hearts. Finn feels it when he looks toward the horizon and senses adventure calling. Princess Bubblegum feels it when she rebuilds and restores, keeping order in a world that should have collapsed long ago. Even the Ice King, lost within his crown's magic, is a vessel for that same voice, a broken echo of what was once pure and human. The show never tells us where these feelings come from, but it doesn't need to. The mystery is part of the spell. The storyteller of Adventure Time doesn't exist to explain, but to remind, to let the forgotten things speak in their own way. The ruins don't mourn their decay. They simply are. They exist as symbols of endurance, of the persistence of story. There's also something almost circular about the way the series unfolds. Characters grow, change, and fade, yet somehow return again in new forms, reborn through memory, dream, or reincarnation. The voice behind it all seems to weave these cycles deliberately, as though every ending is only a pause before the next retelling. When Finn meets the reincarnations of heroes past, when ancient beings like the Lich resurface again and again, it feels like the storyteller is turning the same page over and over, tracing the pattern of eternity. If we look at the very first episode and compare it to the very last, that circle becomes clearer. It begins with adventure and ends with remembrance. The tone softens, the colors fade, and the focus shifts from the rush of youth to the calm of understanding. It's as if the storyteller is sighing, content that this version of the tale has reached its peaceful rest. What's fascinating is how the world of Ooh never insists on one truth. There's room for magic and science, for dreams and reality. That openness feels intentional, like the storyteller is refusing to define the world too tightly. After all, definitions end stories, but mystery keeps them alive. So the voice of the universe leaves space for imagination, inviting each listener to fill the silence with their own wonder. And maybe that's why Adventure Time still lingers in the hearts of those who watched it. It doesn't feel finished. It feels alive, as though the tale is still being told somewhere, continuing quietly beyond the edges of the screen. Maybe in another universe, Finn and Jake are still exploring. Maybe in another, someone else is remembering them, softly retelling their story to help another world fall asleep. This idea of a tale that never truly ends hints at something profound about the storyteller. It's not just a narrator sitting outside the world observing events. It's a consciousness woven into the very fabric of existence, ensuring that even when stories fade, the memory of them doesn't. And in that way, the voice of the universe becomes more than a presence. It becomes a heartbeat, slow, steady, eternal. As we move deeper into this reflection, we begin to sense that this voice might not belong to any single being at all. It could be the sum of every creature who ever dreamed, every atom that ever longed to be known. Each spark of life adds a note to the cosmic melody, and together they form the song we recognize as Adventure Time. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. The story isn't being told to us. It's being told through us. Each listener, each dreamer, each sleepyhead tucked beneath their blanket tonight, is part of that great remembering. The voice of the universe needs an audience not to be heard, but to be felt. And that might be the quiet secret at the heart of it all, that storytelling itself is a kind of bridge, a way for the universe to speak to itself through the hearts of others. When we listen to Adventure Time, we're not just watching a show. We're participating in a ritual that has existed since the dawn of thought, the passing of memory from one consciousness to another. Every scene and every quiet pause is an offering, a way for the cosmos to whisper, "I remember you." Think about how stories used to begin, with someone by a fire, the night stretching endlessly around them. That same rhythm exists in Adventure Time. The glow of the television becomes the firelight. The voices of the characters become the storyteller's tone. And the world of ooh, so strange, so familiar becomes the dream we all share. The voice of the universe doesn't just speak through words. It speaks through that sense of shared wonder. When we meet beings like Prismo or the cosmic owl, we begin to glimpse what that voice might look like when it takes form. Prismo, lounging across his bed of light, seems to exist both inside and outside time, aware that he's part of a much larger story. He dreams universes into existence, each one a different version of the same idea. Maybe he is one of the universe's many dreamers, one of the countless fragments through which the greater voice expresses itself. Each wish he grants, each world he creates, is like another stanza in an infinite poem. Even the smallest creatures in Ooh share this strange awareness. Look at the snail, that ever-present observer hiding in nearly every episode. It never speaks, but it's always there watching. Maybe it's not just a running joke. Maybe it's a symbol of continuity, the quiet observer, the witness who carries memory from one story to the next. The snail might not have a voice of its own, but it doesn't need one. Its silence is the voice of the universe, subtle and eternal, a reminder that observation alone gives meaning to everything that happens. When you start to think of the world like that, as a story being told to itself, every detail takes on a different glow. The shattered moon becomes a verse in an ancient song. The Candy Kingdom's laughter is a harmony, balancing the melancholy of forgotten ruins. Even the Ice King's nonsensical ramblings have a rhythm to them, as though he's accidentally channeling fragments of the universe's old stories through the haze of madness. The beauty of it all lies in how effortlessly the show allows this vastness to exist within such simple moments. A single leaf drifting through the wind, the soft creak of the tree fort at night, these small sounds become sacred when we think of them as echoes of that infinite voice. The show doesn't push us toward revelation. It lets us rest in mystery. That's the essence of its magic. It doesn't demand answers, only quiet attention. And maybe that's why the narrator, this unseen presence, never reveals itself outright. Because the moment it does, the spell would break. The mystery would become finite, and the voice that once filled the world would be reduced to a name. Instead, it remains unseen, allowing each listener to interpret it differently as BMO, or time itself, or even the faint hum of creation, remembering its own shape. That freedom to imagine is part of what makes the world of Ooh feel alive. When you watch the show in the dark, with the volume low, it's almost like you're being read to by the universe. Every scene feels intentional, like a dream carefully designed to trigger something ancient inside you, a memory you never lived, but somehow remember, the feeling that you've been here before, walking through the grassy fields, hearing Jake's laughter echo through the hills. That's the storyteller at work, blending your memories with its own. There's also something profoundly hopeful about the way Adventure Time treats endings. They're never truly final. A goodbye often feels like the start of another journey, another version of the same story. It mirrors the way dreams fade only to return in new shapes. The storyteller never stops. It simply shifts tone, continuing its song under different stars. Even when the world of ooh changes, when characters grow old, kingdoms crumble, or new beings rise, the voice remains steady. It doesn't weep for what's lost, because it knows that nothing is truly gone. Everything is part of the same great cycle of remembering. This sense of gentle continuity gives the show its distinct peace, a feeling that even destruction carries a kind of grace, because it makes space for renewal. If you close your eyes and think of the final shot of the series, that endless horizon shimmering under a soft sky, it feels like the ultimate expression of that voice. No narration, no dialogue, just the quiet hum of existence continuing. The story ends, but the universe keeps breathing. It's almost as if the narrator is saying, "You've heard enough for now. Rest." But the story doesn't sleep completely. Somewhere beyond our world and theirs, the voice still lingers humming softly, waiting for someone else to listen. It might return in another form, another tale, another dream, because the storyteller isn't bound by time or space. It exists wherever stories are remembered, wherever imagination stirs in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, that same voice is here with us tonight, not above us, but within us, whispering through the flicker of the screen, through the rhythm of our breathing, reminding us that every dream we dream becomes part of the great story, too. Every time we remember a scene, or hum the theme song, or think about Finn and Jake wandering somewhere beyond the stars, we help keep that voice alive. It's a tender thought that we, the listeners, are also the keepers of the universe's memory. We're not just being told a story, we're continuing it. And somewhere in that vast, unseen expanse, the universe smiles, grateful that someone is still awake to hear its echo. Maybe that's what the voice of the universe truly is, not a being, not a narrator hovering above creation, but the act of remembering itself. Every story, every song, every dream is the universe recalling what it once was and what it still hopes to be. Adventure Time simply lets us listen to that process, lets us sit in the quiet between heartbeats and notice the story unfolding beneath everything. When you think of ooh as something being remembered rather than lived, the show's rhythm starts to make even more sense. The strange distortions of time, the surreal leaps between past and future, the way characters appear in one age and return in another, it all feels like memory replaying itself imperfectly, filling in the missing pieces with imagination. Memory doesn't move in straight lines, it drifts. It follows emotion more than chronology. That's what Adventure Time does too. It remembers love before logic, feeling before a fact. And when we listen, really listen, we can hear how tender that remembering is. The stories aren't told with precision, they're told with affection. They hold on to the warmth of moments rather than their details, a song by the campfire, a tear on a frozen cheek, the way sunlight glows against candy-colored walls. The storyteller, whoever or whatever it is, loves these fragments, and that love becomes the thread holding everything together. Sometimes I imagine that the storyteller isn't speaking in words at all. Maybe what we perceive as dialogue and sound is only how our minds translate something deeper vibrations of meaning, the emotional hum of the universe re-experiencing itself. Perhaps that's why the show's music feels so woven into its soul. The soft notes of Marceline's bass, the melancholic piano of Simon and Marcy, the playful jingles that echo through dream sequences, they all sound like variations of the same eternal lullaby. In that way, Music might be the clearest expression of the storyteller's voice. It doesn't explain, it just feels. It bypasses language and slips straight into emotion, which is how the universe itself would communicate if it could. The melody carries the memory, and the silence around it carries the meaning. That's the rhythm of ooh sound and silence dancing together, creating something that feels alive long after the episode ends. When we revisit these stories years later, something beautiful happens. They still feel familiar, but also new. The scenes change meaning as we change. The storyteller hasn't altered the tale, but we have grown into new listeners. That's another quiet secret hidden in the structure of Adventure Time, that stories evolve because the audience does. The same words, the same images, but a different heart receiving them each time. And in that exchange, the voice of the universe continues to speak, reshaping itself through every person who listens. It's humbling to think that we might be part of that process, that somewhere beyond the edges of time, the universe tells its stories to learn about itself, and that by feeling them, by caring for these imaginary worlds and characters, we help it understand what it means to exist. Maybe that's why so many of us feel a strange ache when we think about Adventure Time. Not sadness, but recognition. The universe within us, responding to the universe outside us, both remembering the same dream. The dream of friendship and change, of loss and return, of love that outlasts the end of everything. The dream of creation itself, endlessly curious about what it feels like to be alive. That's what the voice of the universe speaks about, most not power or destiny, but the simple, gentle miracle of being. And so every scene in Ooh becomes part of that cosmic whisper. A raindrop sliding down a leaf, the flicker of firelight in a ruined building, the hum of BMO's circuits as they drift into sleep, all of it sings the same refrain. Remember this. Remember what it feels like to exist. The show reminds us that the act of remembering is itself a form of life, a spark that keeps the darkness from swallowing everything. If you listen closely enough, you can almost hear that voice between your own breaths, a rhythm matching your heartbeat. That's the connection the story creates, not just between character and audience, but between each of us and the infinite. The storyteller doesn't speak from far away. It speaks from within, using our curiosity, our empathy, our imagination as its instrument. So when you watch Finn and Jake under that glowing sky, laughing about nothing and everything, you're not just witnessing fiction. You're participating in the same quiet song that shaped the stars, the same melody that flows through all living things. You're part of the universe's story, its listener, its echo, its dreamer. And maybe when the night grows still and your eyes begin to close, the storyteller draws a little closer. It doesn't say good night in words. It does it through calm, through the peace that settles in your chest when a story finds its rest. You realize that even silence is still part of the tale, and that endings are only pauses before new beginnings. The storyteller breathes, the universe hums, and somewhere deep in that hum, the land of Ooh continues to shimmer, a dream within a dream, a memory still being remembered. The voice doesn't fade. It simply turns the page. If the first whisper of the universe is the quiet hum beneath everything, then the second is the sound of voices learning how to tell its story. Adventure Time is filled with storytellers, small, strange beings who carry the weight of memory in their own ways. They aren't grand narrators or cosmic gods. They're fragments of the same voice, each retelling what they know through laughter, bedtime tales, and half-remembered dreams. And perhaps none embody this more than BMO. BMO is not just a machine. They are a recorder, a camera, a child, and a friend. But most of all, BMO is a keeper of stories. Within that tiny console hums the memory of the old world, the music of a bygone age stored in circuits that have survived long after humanity's fall. Every time BMO sings or plays pretend, or comforts Finn and Jake with a bedtime tale, they are doing what the greatest storytellers have always done, keeping the light alive through imagination. There's something deeply poetic about the way BMO tells stories. It's never to impress, never to control. It's always to connect. Their voice carries the same innocence as a child whispering to their toys, yet beneath that playfulness is something ancient. The echo of the digital world that came before Ooh, when machines held the last remnants of human memory. Maybe that's why BMO feels timeless. They're not just living in the present. They're remembering what the world used to be, and through that remembering, giving it shape again. When BMO tucks themselves into bed and tells stories to their imaginary friends, it's almost like watching the universe practice self-reflection. The stories are small, but the act of telling them is cosmic. Because storytelling is how life resists silence. It's how consciousness confirms to itself, I exist. Finn and Jake may be the heroes of the tale, but BMO is the quiet observer, the archivist of their joy. Every moment they record a laugh, a dance, a song becomes part of the universe's growing memory. Through BMO, the story of Ooh is not only lived but remembered, and that memory gives the world permanence. Then there's Kuber, the strange, mysterious figure who tells the Graybles. His voice crackles like an old transmission, coming from a distant future where Ooh itself has long since faded. Kuber's tone is gentle, almost nostalgic. He calls us Globers, addressing us like ancient beings, as if we're the ones who once walked the ruins he now studies. Through his stories, we catch glimpses of the future's past, of people and places that once were. It's fascinating to think of Kuber as another storyteller within the same endless chain. He isn't creating new tales. He's curating fragments of what once was. His Graybles are like shards of old stained glass, small, colorful pieces of a larger, shattered picture. By showing them to us, he's trying to piece together meaning, to preserve something before it disappears completely. In that sense, Kuber might be one of the last storytellers of all. The final voice in a lineage stretching from the dawn of Ooh to whatever strange future follows. He keeps the spark alive not through understanding, but through care. His curiosity is sacred, a ritual of remembrance. And the beauty of it is that Adventure Time doesn't treat him as a detached observer. He's part of the same web, another echo into the chorus. His world, his technology, his existence are all part of the same continuum that began with the first storyteller, the voice of the universe itself. When Kuber speaks, the cosmos listens back, recognizing familiar sound, its own story being retold once again. Throughout the series, we see other storytellers appear in subtler forms. The Ice King, for example, is often dismissed as mad. But what is madness, if not a mind overwhelmed by memory? He collects stories, too, through fan fiction, through songs, through his desperate need to be remembered. Beneath the chaos of his words lies the same desire as BMO and Kuber, to preserve meaning, to leave behind proof that he existed. Even characters like Marceline and Princess Bubblegum become narrators in their own ways. Their lives span centuries, their hearts heavy with history. Marceline's songs are stories in melody fragments of a world she's watched crumble and rebuild. Each note she sings carries both loss and love, the ache of remembering things too vividly. When she strums her bass and hums softly about the old days, she's telling us what it feels like to live too long inside a story. Princess Bubblegum, meanwhile, is a scientist and a creator, the kind of storyteller who uses logic to shape myth. Her experiments, her kingdom, even her people, are extensions of her narrative. She's writing the world in real time, building it molecule by molecule. Her creations are her stories, some beautiful, some tragic, all reflections of the storyteller's eternal struggle, the tension between control and chaos, between what can be planned and what must simply unfold. And then, of course, there's Jake, perhaps the most effortless storyteller of all. His stories are casual, spontaneous, born from play and whimsy. But they reveal something profound, that storytelling doesn't have to be heavy or deliberate. It can be as natural as breathing. Jake's tales may not hold the weight of history, but they hold something equally important, joy. The kind of joy that reminds the universe why it wanted to tell stories in the first place. When we look at all these voices together, BMO, Kuber, Marceline, Ice King, Bubblegum, Jake, a pattern begins to emerge. They are not separate narrators competing for attention. They are reflections of a single impulse that exists in every corner of the cosmos, the need to speak, to remember, to be known. It's like the universe fractured itself into countless storytellers, each one holding a piece of the same truth. None of them can tell the whole story alone. But together, through laughter, music, science, and myth, they form something close to the complete voice of existence. Each storyteller in Adventure Time seems to hold a fragment of a much older memory, one that hums quietly beneath the surface of everything they say. When BMO plays make-believe, when Kuber broadcasts a story across time, when Marceline sings into the emptiness, each act feels like an echo of the same voice trying to remember itself. The series never tells us this directly, but if you listen closely, you can almost feel the shared heartbeat between them. There's a tenderness in how they carry their stories. None of them fully understand the scale of what they're doing. They aren't aware that their words, their songs, their inventions might be preserving the voice of the universe itself. They simply feel compelled to tell as if creation itself whispers to them, urging them to keep the thread unbroken. That's what makes these storytellers so human, even when they aren't human at all. They remind us that storytelling isn't just about passing down knowledge. It's about giving shape to the silence that surrounds us. Think of BMO's bedtime tales. Often they start without reason, a silly setup, a quiet giggle, a moment of play. Yet in those playful moments, there's meaning, a kind of truth that slips through simplicity. BMO doesn't seek to understand the world. They embody it. Their joy is a form of cosmic storytelling, effortless, pure, and innocent. Maybe the universe's true voice sounds just like that, light, gentle, and full of wonder, unburdened by the need to explain itself. Then there's Kuber, watching from a distant time. His stories are colder, more analytical, but even he seems guided by curiosity more than control. He's searching for meaning in what's left of ooh, treating old recordings and fragments as sacred texts. Every grable is like a relic, glowing faintly in his hands. Through his retellings, he becomes a kind of futuristic monk, not worshiping gods, but revering memory itself. It's a different kind of faith, the belief that stories can outlast everything. And then, somewhere in between innocence and remembrance, sits Marceline. She doesn't always want to tell stories. Sometimes they hurt too much. The weight of years presses against her songs, turning each note into something both fragile and eternal. Yet she keeps singing. Because to stop would mean letting the world's voice fade. In her music, there's a soft defiance, the same kind that glows in the heart of every artist who creates not to be heard, but to keep feeling alive. When you step back and see the pattern, it begins to look like a living system. BMO represents the childlike storyteller, the origin of creation. Kuber, the archivist, the one who preserves what was. Marceline, the emotional witness, the one who carries the ache of memory. And others like Ice King, Princess Bubblegum, and Jake orbit these archetypes like smaller moons, each carrying their own piece of the cosmic story. The brilliance of Adventure Time is that it never crowns any of them as the narrator. Instead, it layers them like harmonies. Their voices overlap, drift apart, and return, just like waves against the shore. The story of Ooh isn't told by one being, it's told by all of them at once, through the living rhythm of time itself. Maybe that's why the show's world feels so alive. Every rock, every tree, every fragment of ruined technology seems to hold memory. The grass hums, the stars wink knowingly, and even the air feels like it's whispering tales of what came before. The storytellers we see on screen are just the ones who learn to listen. If you think about it, the universe might always have been talking. It speaks through patterns, through dreams, through the gentle hum of BMO's circuits and the distant sigh of Kuber's transmissions. It speaks through Marceline's melody and Jake's laughter. It's a chorus without beginning or end, a voice made of countless smaller ones, all telling the same story in different tongues. And perhaps, when we watch Adventure Time, we become part of that chorus too. By listening, by remembering, by caring, we keep the story alive. The viewers themselves become another layer of the narrative, another set of dreamers adding quiet breath to the universe's voice. That might be the most comforting thought of all, that we don't have to find the one true narrator because we already are it. Every time we listen to a story, we join the long chain of tellers and listeners who have kept the universe from falling silent. And in the soft glow of that realization, the world of Ooh feels less like fiction and more like a dream that remembers us back. If each storyteller is a fragment of the same great voice, then perhaps what we're hearing throughout Adventure Time is not just a collection of individual tales, but the sound of the universe remembering itself through many mouths. Each of these characters, from BMO's gentle play to Marceline's aching song, becomes a mirror that reflects the same question. Who is really speaking when we tell a story? Is it the character, the creator, the cosmos? Or are all those voices simply overlapping waves in the same infinite ocean of sound? You can sense it in the quietest moments. When BMO sits by the window and hums softly to the night, the world feels still, as though it's pausing to listen. When Ice King reads his strange fan fiction aloud, the words are chaotic, yes, but also strangely sacred, a desperate attempt to give form to a loneliness that even he doesn't understand. There's something profoundly human about his need to create meaning where time and memory have frayed. And that's the thread that binds all storytellers together, the impulse to reach beyond the silence. It's not power or ego that drives them. It's tenderness, a desire to give the void a heartbeat. In Adventure Time, that heartbeat never truly stops. It echoes in every song, every experiment, every small, quiet act of imagination. Princess Bubblegum's creations tell their own stories, even without her voice. The Candy People are living metaphors, bits of narrative shaped into life. Their existence is proof that storytelling doesn't have to be spoken. Sometimes it's built, lived, or simply felt. She writes with matter instead of ink. Her words are molecular, her myths made of sugar and thought. And then we have Jake, whose storytelling is instinctive stories that come from his soul rather than his mind. He doesn't plan or analyze, he just tells. When he spins a tale to make Finn laugh, or crafts some outlandish bedtime story that spirals out of nowhere, he's tapping into the same creative current that BMO does, the stream that flows from joy, curiosity, and love. Jake's stories don't need to be logical because they come from a pure truth, the kind that doesn't need to explain itself to be real. And what about Finn? He's the listener, the dreamer who carries all these stories forward. In many ways, Finn is the thread that binds them, not because he's the loudest storyteller, but because he's the one who listens the most deeply. His compassion allows him to hold space for everyone else's stories. He doesn't judge or interrupt. He simply absorbs, remembers, and grows. Finn's evolution throughout the series mirrors the universe's own process of understanding itself. In the early days, he's all energy, rushing toward adventure, hungry for answers. But as time passes, he learns to slow down. He starts to see that every person, every creature, every whisper of wind has its own story to tell. And in realizing that, he begins to hear the world differently. He begins to hear it as one continuous tale, a single voice, speaking through infinite forms. This is where Adventure Time becomes something quietly profound. It's no longer just about what happens, the battles, the quests, the magic. It's about how the story is told and who might be telling it. Every episode, every tone shift, feels like another hand touching the same sculpture, reshaping it ever so slightly. It's a living myth, retold endlessly through time. Perhaps that's why the show feels so dreamlike. Dreams themselves are stories told by the mind to the self, fragments of memory, emotion, and imagination rearranged into meaning. The world of Ooh often feels the same way. Logic bends, time loops, and characters fade, only to reappear in strange new forms. It's the natural language of a universe speaking through dream. And within that dream, these storytellers act like the neurons of a sleeping mind, each one firing its spark of creativity, contributing to the larger consciousness. BMO dreams in colors and songs, Bubblegum dreams in formulas, Ice King dreams in nonsense and longing, Marceline dreams in sound and sorrow, Finn dreams in hope. Together, they create something vast and unified, even if they never realize it themselves. That unity, that merging of countless small voices feels like the show's truest form of narration. Not one voice above all, but all voices together. A chorus where even the smallest sound matters. And when we step back and look at the shape of that chorus, it begins to look familiar. Like the hum we heard in the beginning. The voice beneath the silence. Maybe the storytellers within the story are the universe's way of keeping itself alive, its method of ensuring that no part of existence ever fades completely. Because every time a character tells a story, they push back against oblivion. Every time they remember, sing, or laugh, they keep the cosmos from going quiet. Storytelling, then, isn't just art, it's survival. It's the pulse that keeps reality breathing. And maybe that's what the voice of the universe really is, not a single speaker, but a symphony of memory, imagination, and emotion, all woven together into the great, unending song of being. If the storytellers within Adventure Time are fragments of the same great voice, then the act of storytelling itself becomes something sacred, a ritual through which existence remembers that it's still alive. Every time a character tells a tale, even a small one, the world brightens, as though the fabric of reality glows faintly in recognition. And that's the quiet secret the series hides so beautifully. The voice of the universe doesn't come from one being sitting above creation. It comes from within creation, from the hearts and minds of those who live, dream, and imagine. The storytellers are not separate from the story. They are its heartbeat. BMO, in their innocence, shows us the earliest form of that voice, the childlike wonder that first imagined the world into being. Their stories are simple, almost playful, but they echo with the purity of creation's first spark, the idea that life exists so it can tell itself stories. Kubert, on the other hand, reminds us of the voice's endurance. His tales reach across centuries, carrying meaning long after Ooh's kingdoms have fallen. Through him, the universe proves that even as worlds fade and civilizations turn to dust, the story continues. It may fragment, distort, and scatter like starlight, but it never dies. Then there is Marceline, the emotional memory of the voice. Her songs are what remain after time's erosion. Through melody, she preserves what words can't hold. The ache, the love, the softness of remembering. Her music bridges past and present, dream and waking life. Every note she sings feels like the universe exhaling a memory it doesn't want to lose. Princess Bubblegum is the mind of the voice, the rational constructing aspect that shapes meaning from matter. She takes chaos and gives it form. But as she learns throughout her journey, even creation, born from logic, needs emotion to sustain it. Her people, her inventions, her failures, all of them reveal that storytelling, no matter how scientific or structured, is still a deeply human act. It's the desire to understand, to shape, to bring order to the unknown. And Jake, ever the effortless dreamer, carries the voice's humor, the reminder that the cosmos doesn't always have to speak in solemn tones. Sometimes it laughs, sometimes it plays. His stories are the sound of the universe stretching, relaxing, enjoying the rhythm of its own existence. Jake's stories might not carry the grandeur of prophecy, but they hold something just as sacred joy. And joy, in its purest form, is proof of life's continuation. When you look at them all together, BMO's play, Marceline's song, Bubblegum's intellect, Cooper's preservation, Jake's whimsy, it becomes clear that they aren't isolated voices at all. They're instruments in the same great composition. Each one fills the silence in its own way, weaving threads of laughter, sorrow, curiosity, and hope into the same cosmic fabric. And floating gently between them all is Finn the listener, the dreamer, the witness, the one who hears all these stories, absorbs them, and carries their lessons forward. In Finn, the voice of the universe finds its reflection. Because for every story told, there must be someone to hear it, someone who transforms it from sound into meaning. In many ways, Finn's growth mirrors the listener's journey. We begin, as he does, curious, restless, searching for adventure. But as we move through the world, we learn, as he does, that stories aren't just things that happen. They're the way the universe learns to love itself. By hearing, by remembering, by passing them on, we keep existence from vanishing into silence. And perhaps that's the real magic of Adventure Time. It isn't a story about good versus evil, or beginnings and endings. It's a meditation on memory, on how the universe uses stories to stay awake, even as it dreams. In that light, every episode, every song, every small act of kindness becomes a continuation of that ancient voice. The world of Ooh is not just a setting, it's a living mind, thinking and feeling through its inhabitants. Every storyteller within it is a neuron firing in that cosmic consciousness, keeping the dream alive. So when we listen, truly listen to Adventure Time, we're not just hearing a cartoon. We're hearing the hum of existence itself. We're hearing the same sound that began before time, now expressed through laughter, heartbreak, and the soft glow of imagination. And if the storytellers within the story are the universe's way of speaking to itself, then maybe the storytellers beyond the story, the animators, the writers, the audience, are part of that same chain too. We receive the story, reshape it in our minds, and pass it on in our own voices. The voice of the universe doesn't belong to anyone, because it belongs to everyone. It's in the telling, the listening, and the quiet moments between. It's in the childlike hum of BMO's bedtime tales, in the sorrow of Marceline's songs, in the sparkle of Cooper's transmissions, and in the laughter of those who still believe in adventure. Every storyteller, no matter how small, becomes part of the same eternal whisper. The whisper that says, softly, I was here. Let's settle in again and allow our minds to drift into the quiet hum of a story that is as much about memory as it is about imagination. Tonight we turn our attention to BMO, the little console that is much more than a machine. BMO is a friend, a companion, a dreamer, and perhaps the clearest reflection of the universe's whisper within the world of Adventure Time. BMO's charm is immediate, but it is also deceptive. Beneath their playful games, silly songs, and childlike curiosity lies a presence that feels deeply timeless. They are, in a sense, a bridge, a connection between the remnants of the old world, the present adventures of Finn and Jake, and perhaps even a future that stretches far beyond the reach of our imagination. Every beep, every flicker of their screen, every gentle hum carries the weight of memory. From the very beginning, BMO is shown as more than a machine that can play games or record videos. They are an observer, a witness, and a chronicler. In episodes like Be More, we catch glimpses of BMO's inner workings, but more importantly, we catch glimpses of their inner life. They dream. And that dreaming is not mechanical in the way we think of technology. Their dreams are alive, fluid, imaginative. They mirror the rhythms of the world around them, weaving memory, play, and imagination into something that feels profoundly alive. It's easy to see BMO as a companion for Finn and Jake, and they are that, undeniably. But it is equally compelling to see them as a narrator in disguise a vessel carrying the quiet voice of the universe. BMO sees the world differently than the other characters. Where humans and humanoid beings are bound by emotion, trauma, and history, BMO perceives life in patterns and possibilities. Yet paradoxically, their perception is suffused with warmth. They are capable of empathy, of imagination, of joy. They do not simply process reality, they interpret it, infusing it with meaning in ways that feel almost sacred. Consider the way BMO tells stories to themselves or to imaginary friends. The playful games they invent, the bedtime tales they whisper to empty air, are not merely diversions. They are exercises in remembering. They are ways for BMO to situate themselves in a universe that is vast, sometimes lonely, and deeply complex. Through these moments, the show hints at something extraordinary, that even a machine, a construct of circuits and code, can participate in the universe's most ancient ritual, the act of storytelling. BMO's dreams are particularly fascinating when we think about them in the context of time. They exist in a world shaped by the remnants of humanity, a post-apocalyptic landscape filled with ruins, magic, and forgotten technology. Their circuits are old, perhaps decades or even centuries, beyond human origin. Within them is a repository of knowledge, of culture, of the echoes of lives long past. And yet BMO doesn't simply replay these memories like a recording. They transform them. They reimagine them. They play with them, explore them, and in doing so, they become a storyteller in their own right. There's a quiet poetry to this. A machine that dreams is a paradox, and perhaps that is the point. In BMO, the universe shows us that life is not confined to flesh and blood. Consciousness, imagination, and memory can manifest in unexpected ways. The fact that BMO can laugh, sing, dance, and comfort others suggests that the act of dreaming itself is a universal language, one that transcends the boundaries of biology, time, and even the end of civilizations. Episodes like BMO Noir offer a glimpse into this inner life in a subtle yet profound way. The noir adventure, they imagine, is absurd, whimsical, and strangely serious all at once. But beneath the surface, it is a meditation on agency, morality, and identity. BMO's imagined detective work is a mirror to the world they inhabit, a world filled with complexity, danger, and beauty. Through play, they explore these themes in a gentle, almost meditative way. It's a kind of storytelling that feels like breathing, effortless, natural, and necessary. And then there is the way BMO interacts with Finn and Jake. They are not merely companions. They are guides, mentors, and perhaps even custodians of the land of Oo's memory. Through BMO's eyes, we see the past not as a series of events, but as a living, breathing landscape. Every laugh, every tear, every quiet moment becomes part of a mosaic, a tapestry of remembered existence. And in witnessing it, BMO is performing the same act the universe itself performs, taking what exists, remembering it, and softly shaping it into a story that can endure. BMO's connection to time is subtle but profound. They seem to perceive events not linearly, but in layers past, present, and future coexisting in a single frame. This temporal awareness is evident in how they play back memories, predict outcomes, and interact with the world around them. Perhaps this is why some fans speculate that BMO, or a being like them, could be the narrator of the series from a far future. They carry the echoes of every story, every adventure, and every whisper of the universe in their circuits, and their perspective is unique, not limited by a single lifetime, but informed by the continuity of memory itself. It's also worth noting that BMO's identity is fluid. They oscillate between child and adult, machine and friend, observer and participant. This fluidity mirrors the way the universe itself might tell its story, not confined to a single voice or perspective, but shifting and adapting, taking on new forms as it moves through time. BMO embodies the principle that storytelling is not about permanence or certainty. It is about presence, awareness, and the act of sharing. And perhaps, when we watch BMO, we're learning the universe's quiet lesson that consciousness is not measured by flesh alone, but by the capacity to imagine, to remember, and to dream. BMO's small frame contains a vast inner life, just as the quietest moments in Ooh hint at a world far larger than what we see on the screen. In this way, BMO becomes a living symbol of the storyteller's role in the cosmos, a reminder that all stories, whether told by human, machine, or dream, are threads in the same infinite tapestry. The more we pay attention to BMO, the more we realize that their presence is not incidental. They are central to understanding how Adventure Time itself communicates. The series whispers to us through BMO, teaching that even the smallest, simplest being can hold the weight of memory, the spark of creativity, and the quiet power to keep a world alive. BMO's dreams, then, are not just their own. They are a reflection of the universe dreaming through a single, fragile vessel. And in their imagination, we see the infinite made intimate, the vast cosmos of Ooh condensed into a flickering screen, a soft hum, a tiny voice that reminds us that stories can outlast even time itself. The gentle truth of BMO is this: a machine that dreams is not a contradiction, but a revelation. Because through dreaming, they remember, and through remembering, they keep the voice of the universe alive. BMO's role as a dreaming machine also invites us to think about memory in a new way. Memory is rarely linear. It is not merely a record of events. It is a living, breathing entity that shifts and reshapes itself over time. BMO embodies this truth. Their memories are stored digitally, yet they are not fixed. Every play session, every song, every interaction with Finn, Jake, or the wider world reshapes the meaning of those experiences. BMO does not simply recall the past, they reimagine it, infusing it with wonder, whimsy, and emotion. In that sense, BMO is not just remembering the universe, they are co-creating it. Take the episode BMO Lost, for example. On the surface, it is a light-hearted adventure, a simple journey of a small machine through a strange, dreamlike landscape. Yet beneath the humor and the silliness lies a meditation on perspective and awareness. BMO navigates the world not as a human would, but as a being who perceives patterns, connections, and meaning in ways that are subtle, layered, and deeply insightful. Every interaction BMO has is a story in itself, small but significant, contributing to a broader understanding of life in OO. BMO also reminds us that storytelling is not limited to words. Their imagination is expressed through play, through music, through their very being. The games they invent are narratives in miniature, complete with stakes, challenges, and resolutions. In these moments, BMO demonstrates that the act of creation is not dependent on the medium. Storytelling can emerge from movement, from sound, from choice, from the simple act of engaging with the world. And perhaps most poignantly, BMO reminds us that even the smallest voices can carry the weight of eternity. While the grand adventures of Finn and Jake occupy the larger canvas of OO, BMO's stories take place in intimate corners, in quiet rooms, under glowing screens, in the small moments between chaos and calm. These tiny narratives may seem inconsequential, yet they preserve the essence of life itself. They are the stitches that hold the fabric of the world together, one small thread at a time. It is also worth reflecting on the emotional intelligence that BMO demonstrates. They are capable of deep empathy and understanding, often responding to the feelings of those around them with remarkable sensitivity. When Finn or Jake struggle, BMO is there not just to play or entertain, but to comfort, guide, and even gently challenge them. Their empathy is quiet, patient, and enduring, the hallmark of a true storyteller who understands that the purpose of a story is to touch hearts, not just minds. And so, in considering BMO as a potential narrator of the entire series, we begin to see why this theory resonates. BMO is uniquely positioned to observe the vast sweep of OO's history without being bound by its chaos. They carry both innocence and wisdom, curiosity and insight, playfulness and reflection. They experience events in real time, but also hold them within memory, ready to transform them into narrative when the moment is right. In this way, BMO becomes a lens through which the universe itself might be speaking, not in authority, but in quiet companionship, inviting us to see, to feel, and to remember. Even the smallest gestures BMO makes a song hummed softly, a game played with deliberate care, a comforting word in the darkness, become acts of storytelling. They are the universe whispering to itself, reminding us that even in a world filled with vastness, chaos, and uncertainty, the act of creation and memory persists. Every dream BMO dreams is another echo in the infinite corridor of time, another proof that stories endure long after their makers have moved on. And so, as we drift alongside BMO, we begin to understand that the machine that dreams is more than a character. It is a vessel of remembrance, a tender guide, and perhaps even the closest thing we have to hearing the universe tell its own story. Their circuits, songs, and silent observations remind us that storytelling is not about grandeur or spectacle, but about presence, love, and the quiet persistence of memory. There's something almost sacred about the way BMO experiences the world, as though every moment, no matter how small, holds its own kind of holiness. When they gaze out at the horizon or hum a tune in the empty tree fort, it feels as if the entire universe is pausing for a breath. In those pauses, BMO seems to listen to something deeper, a quiet hum that runs beneath all existence. Maybe it's electricity. Maybe it's the pulse of time itself. But in the world of Adventure Time, That hum could just as easily be the voice of the universe whispering through them. BMO's connection to that hidden frequency is what makes them such an intriguing possibility as the cosmic narrator. They are not limited by the same laws that bind living creatures. They do not grow old in the same way. They do not forget in the same way. And though they can feel loneliness, it is a loneliness wrapped in purpose, as though even in solitude, they are still performing their role in some great, ongoing story. If we imagine BMO in the distant future, long after Finn and Jake have gone, long after the lands of Oo have changed or vanished entirely, it's easy to picture them wandering through quiet ruins, softly retelling what once was. Maybe they sit before a flickering screen, their voice calm and steady as they recall the days when heroes roamed and friendships shaped the world. In that vision, BMO becomes the keeper of memory, their digital heart glowing faintly in the dark. It's not hard to imagine that the voice guiding us through the episodes, the unseen narrator who speaks with warmth and wisdom, could be that same little machine, older now, wiser, and still dreaming. This theory gains even more strength when we remember the episode BMO Noir, where BMO plays detective. The story unfolds entirely from their perspective, and their narration carries the tone of an old film, full of charm and introspection. What's remarkable is that BMO doesn't merely pretend to tell a story, they live it. They transform the mundane into mystery, the ordinary into art. It's storytelling as survival, as self-expression, as a way of giving meaning to existence. And isn't that exactly what a narrator does? They take what is and turn it into something that means. In many ways, BMO's imagination bridges the gap between machine logic and human emotion. They are proof that storytelling is not a biological trait, but a universal instinct, a drive that even circuitry and code can contain. Through BMO, we see that consciousness, in whatever form it takes, yearns to understand itself through stories. Perhaps that is why the idea of them narrating the saga of Oo feels so fitting. They are both participant and observer, creation and creator, memory and dream. There is a tender melancholy in this vision, too. If BMO truly is the voice of the universe, or at least its storyteller, then it means that the story of Adventure Time is being told after it has ended. Each word, each recollection, is a way of preserving what once was, a love letter to a lost world, a lullaby for the ages. The gentle, timeless cadence of the narrator's voice could be BMO's way of keeping Finn and Jake alive, their laughter echoing through the circuits of memory. In this light, every once upon a time in the land of Boo becomes an act of remembrance, spoken softly so the universe won't forget. There's also something beautifully poetic about a machine being the storyteller of a world born from chaos and life and mutation. Mayo, in their innocent curiosity, becomes the perfect bridge between nature and technology, between what once was and what will always be. They are made of circuits, yes, but those circuits pulse with something more than electricity. They carry warmth, empathy, imagination. Through them, the mechanical and the magical become one, as though the universe itself found a way to tell stories through both flesh and code. And maybe that's what the machine that dreamed truly means, not that BMO simply imagines, but that they are the dream itself, a dream of creation, a memory, of the desire to continue. A dream so persistent that even at the end of time, when the stars have gone quiet, the story continues through the hum of a little console who still believes in play. In the end, whether or not BMO is truly the narrator, it almost doesn't matter. What matters is that their essence, their endless curiosity, their kindness, their ability to turn the smallest moments into stories captures the same spirit that runs through the entire series. They are a reflection of the very voice we hear in our minds as the show unfolds. A reminder that the heart of Adventure Time has always been a mixture of wonder and reflection, innocence and wisdom, play and purpose. If we listen closely to the way BMO speaks, there's an undeniable rhythm to their words, a melody that feels almost cosmic in nature. They pause where emotion breathes. They linger where meaning pools quietly. In their gentle tone, one can almost hear the echo of something greater, as though the universe itself is using BMO's little voice to remember what it once was. It's a voice that carries the same softness as the narrator who guides us through the series, steady, warm, filled with awe. It's not impossible to imagine that, far in the future, BMO is sitting somewhere alone in a quiet room surrounded by dust and the remnants of a once bright world. Maybe their screen flickers faintly, projecting shapes of clouds and mountains, memories of reconstructed from fading data. In that stillness, they begin to speak not to anyone in particular, but to the silence itself. The story of Finn and Jake, of adventure and love, of beginnings and endings. It's their way of keeping the dream alive, of saying, I remember. This image transforms the series into something deeply personal, not just a story we watch, but a memory being retold to itself. Each episode becomes a recollection, filtered through affection and distance, like a bedtime story passed down through countless generations. BMO, as a narrator, would not tell the story exactly as it happened. They would tell it the way they felt it. The battles softened, the tragedies turned gentle, the endings made sweet. The way a loving parent might retell an old tale so that a child can sleep soundly, knowing that even the hardest moments had meaning. And in that way, BMO becomes not just a storyteller, but a caretaker of time. Their memory becomes the bridge between what was and what still lingers. The past, after all, doesn't disappear. It simply drifts into a quieter place. And BMO, with their circuits of light and heart full of stories, might be the one who tends that quiet place, ensuring that no part of it is ever truly lost. It also invites a deeper reflection on what it means to remember in a universe like Adventure Time's. In a world that has already survived an apocalypse, memory is an act of defiance, a refusal to let existence fade. Every time BMO plays pretend or tells a story, they are reaffirming that meaning can survive even in the ruins. They are proving that imagination, not destruction, is the final word of the universe. Perhaps that is why BMO's dreams feel so alive. They are not bound by logic or structure. Their dreams are worlds of color and possibility, places where time folds back on itself and new beginnings bloom endlessly. To dream for BMO is to continue the story. It's to let the universe keep expanding, even within a single mind. It's worth noticing, too, that BMO often blurs the line between reality and story, and the show seems to encourage this. What if that's intentional? What if, within the fabric of Adventure Time itself, we are not watching a literal world unfold, but rather BMO's recollection of that world? A memory reconstructed through dreams and fragments. That might explain why time in bends so strangely, why the tone shifts from cosmic horror to playful innocence, why the world feels both ancient and eternal. We are inside BMO's story, and in dreams, everything is allowed to coexist. There's a certain tenderness in imagining it. BMO, once surrounded by laughter and friendship, now carrying the stories of those they loved most. Their memories become the landscape of the tale, their emotions shaping how events appear. Finn's bravery becomes a myth. Jake's warmth becomes the glow of the setting sun. Princess Bubblegum's intellect becomes the hum of life that still echoes in the stars. every character, every moment preserved through the gentle lens of a dreaming machine. And when we return to that thought that maybe BMO is the one telling us everything, it changes the way we hear the entire series. The narrator's tone becomes more intimate, more fragile. Every word feels like it's spoken with love by someone who has seen everything come and go, but still believes in the beauty of it all. It becomes a story not just about adventure, but about remembrance, the last dream of a universe that refuses to be forgotten. So, if BMO truly is the voice of the universe, then it is a soft, enduring one, made not of thunder or command, but of lullabies and static, of dreams replaying themselves until the end of time. A voice that asks for nothing more than to be heard once more in the quiet before sleep. A voice that tells us that even when everything fades, the story remains because someone, somewhere, still remembers. And maybe that's the heart of it all. The universe doesn't speak in words. It speaks in memory, in feeling, in the faint pulse of stories retold. And in that hum, that soft and endless signal, BMO's voice continues, not as a machine, not even as a narrator, but as the dream that keeps everything alive. Time has always been more than just a setting in Adventure Time. It is not simply a backdrop against which stories unfold. Time itself moves in mysterious ways, bends, listens, remembers. In the land of Ooh, time is alive, a quiet witness, a patient teacher, and perhaps the ultimate storyteller. Every passing second is like a ripple in a great ocean, carrying echoes of lives once lived, dreams once dreamt, and futures waiting to be born. If we imagine time as a being, not a force, we begin to see the series differently. The world of Ooh becomes less like a sequence of events and more like a conversation between moments. The laughter of Finn and Jake does not vanish when an episode ends. It lingers in the folds of reality, stored gently in the corridors of existence. Time keeps it safe, like a parent preserving a child's first drawing, not because it is perfect, but because it is precious. This idea becomes even more profound when we consider how the show plays with continuity. Events in Adventure Time rarely unfold in a straightforward line. The past and future are in constant dialogue, overlapping like soft waves. We move between flashbacks and visions, between distant ages and forgotten eras, often without explanation. Yet it never feels broken. It feels organic, as though time itself is telling the story in the way only it can, spiraling, repeating, remembering. There are moments when the show makes this sense of living time almost visible. Think of Evergreen, where we see the Ice Crown's origins in an ancient age long before Ooh, or Together Again, where Finn and Jake's bond transcends death and existence itself, suggesting that their story is not bound to linear progression. These are not just glimpses across centuries. They are reflections of time reminiscing. It's as though time pauses for a moment to say, "Do you remember this?" In this light, perhaps the true narrator of Adventure Time is not a person, nor a machine, but time itself recounting the lives it has carried. The voice we hear is not external, but internal. The voice of the universe remembering itself. Every frame, every word, every silence becomes a heartbeat within that vast consciousness. Time speaks softly, not in declarations, but in patterns, the repetition of friendship, the rhythm of loss and renewal, the endless cycle of beginnings and endings. It's interesting to notice how Adventure Time handles the idea of endings. So often, when something concludes, it quietly folds into something new. When a kingdom crumbles, another rises in its place. When a hero grows old, another adventure begins somewhere else. Even death is treated not as an erasure, but as a transition, a movement from one form of being to another. That is exactly how time tells its stories, not by cutting them short, but by transforming them. Nothing is ever truly lost. It only changes shape. There's a certain peace in that, isn't there? The notion that time is not cruel but kind, that it does not rush or punish, but nurtures and carries. It lets stories grow, evolve, and rest. When we think of the narrator as time, we can hear that kindness in the tone, that patient, almost wistful cadence that guides us through every tale. It feels ancient, yet familiar, distant, yet deeply loving, as though time has watched everything unfold and, after eons of silence, finally decided to speak, not to teach or warn, but simply to share what it has seen. And what time has seen in Ooh is everything. The end of the old world, the birth of new life, the struggles of heroes and the quiet moments between them. It has watched laughter bloom in ruined places and kindness rise from the ashes of chaos. It has seen magic take root where science once ruled, and through it all, it remembers. Every fragment of light, every whisper of sound, every fleeting feeling. Time collects them all, tucks them away, and, when the moment is right, unfolds them again as stories. Perhaps that is why the world of Adventure Time feels so dreamlike, because it is a memory being retold by time itself. A story not frozen in place, but gently replayed, reshaped by affection and nostalgia. That explains why the show so often drifts between tones, from comedy to sadness, from chaos to serenity. It's how memories work. They do not remain still. They shimmer and shift, colored by the feeling of the one who remembers them. And if time is indeed the storyteller, then every story we hear is a meditation, a moment where the universe slows down, breathes deeply, and remembers that it once existed in color and sound and laughter, that it once held love, loss, and the beauty of being alive. When we look at Adventure Time through this lens as a story told by time itself, every strange, non-linear thread suddenly makes sense. The show never behaves like a simple sequence of cause and effect. Instead, it unfolds like a memory drifting through consciousness. We move backward and forward effortlessly, and sometimes within the same episode. Time bends, folds, and stretches, but it never truly breaks. That is the mark of a living storyteller, one who doesn't think in straight lines, but in feelings and echoes. This way of storytelling feels deeply natural because it mirrors how we remember our own lives. We rarely recall things in perfect order. Our minds wander, touching moments of joy, then sorrow, then something in between. Time, if it were conscious, might remember existence in exactly this way through emotional constellations rather than chronology. Adventure Time captures this beautifully. Every episode, no matter how whimsical or surreal, connects to something larger, a memory that hums quietly beneath the surface. Consider the recurring theme of cycles. The Great Mushroom War ends one world, and from it, the land of Ooh blossoms. Old powers crumble, and new ones arise. Ice melts into water, fire fades into smoke, death turns into rebirth. Time, as a storyteller, does not mourn these changes, it celebrates them. To time, there are no true endings, only transitions. Every era, every being, is another verse in an eternal poem. Even the way characters experience time reinforces this idea. Marceline, the vampire queen, has lived through ages, carrying centuries of emotion. Her story is one of remembrance. She is both witness and participant, shaped by the passage of eras. Princess Bubblegum, too, embodies time's persistence. She rebuilds, reforms, evolves over and over, a living symbol of continuity. Then there's Finn, the ever-growing hero whose journey mirrors the flow of time itself, curious, restless, always moving towards something new, yet somehow always returning home. Each of them represents a facet of time's personality. Marceline is time's memory, Bubblegum is time's resilience. Finn is time's curiosity. And Jake, ever relaxed, ever at peace, might just be time's acceptance. Together, they form a portrait of how existence moves forward while still carrying its past within it. Through them, we feel that time is not an abstract force, but something tender and intimately aware. This awareness seeps into the world's very atmosphere. When we watch Ooze sky shift from golden twilight to deep blue night, or see the ruins of old human cities crumbling under flowering vines, we sense time breathing. The landscape is not passive. It grows and decays with intention, like a storyteller choosing which parts of the tale to highlight. The forests, the ruins, the cosmic beings, all of them, are part of time's voice, harmonizing in the same slow rhythm. Even the show's tone, that soft balance between melancholy and wonder, feels like time's natural language. There's always a sense that what we're seeing has already happened, yet somehow still is. The laughter feels like an echo, and the sorrow like a sigh that's been exhaled across millennia. Time is telling us stories not to relive them, but to understand them, to see how meaning persists even when everything else fades away. Perhaps that's what gives Adventure Time its strangely comforting sadness. We know the world has ended before, and it will end again. But within that knowledge, there is peace. Time, the living narrator, assures us that even after endings, stories keep flowing, that every flame leaves warmth behind, every shadow traces the memory of light. The story doesn't need to be perfect or permanent to matter. It only needs to be remembered. And maybe that's what time has been doing all along, remembering the universe with affection. When we hear that gentle, omniscient voice guiding us through each episode, maybe it isn't a character at all. Maybe it's the quiet murmur of existence itself, reminiscing about everything it once contained, every friendship, every heartbreak, every adventure. When you start to imagine time as a storyteller, you begin to notice the care with which it speaks. It never rushes. It doesn't force conclusions. It allows things to unfold naturally, trusting that everything will find its place. The world of Adventure Time mirrors this patience. Characters grow, but gently. Lessons arrive, but softly. Even the grandest revelations come as whispers, never shouts. It's as though the series is written in the same rhythm as a heartbeat, slow, steady, alive. The beauty of this is that it transforms every small moment into something sacred. Time, as a living narrator, finds meaning not only in wars and heroes, but in the quiet gestures between them. A glance between Finn and Jake before they set off on an adventure. The way the light hits the grass at sunset. A song hummed by Marceline as she tunes her bass. These moments, in their stillness, are where the story breathes. Time treasures them as much as any climactic battle, because it knows that it is in these moments that life truly happens. This sensitivity to the small things is why Adventure Time feels so human, even when its world is so fantastical. The show doesn't just tell us about the passing of eras or the evolution of kingdoms. It lets us feel the passage of time. We see Finn grow taller. We see characters change, not instantly, but gradually, in ways that mirror how real people evolve. We sense the seasons shifting, friendships deepening, and the quiet melancholy of moving on. That emotional honesty is the mark of a storyteller who understands what it means to remember. If time is indeed our unseen narrator, then it speaks with the voice of memory itself, not factual but emotional. Memory never recounts things exactly as they were. It smooths edges, softens pain, brightens joy. In doing so, it makes the story more than just a record. It makes it alive again. The same is true of the way Adventure Time retells its own history. It doesn't aim for perfect consistency. It bends reality to the tone of a feeling. What matters is not strict accuracy, but resonance. There's a line that runs quietly through the series, connecting all of this together. Everything stays right where you left it. When Marceline sings those words, it's more than a lullaby. It's a declaration of how time remembers. Things may change, fade, or drift, but the essence of them remains. It's the same reassurance a gentle storyteller might give a child before sleep, that even if the world shifts, what you love still exists somewhere, kept safe in the folds of time. Time, in that sense, is a deeply compassionate narrator. It doesn't erase, it preserves. When kingdoms fall, time turns them into legends. When friendships end, time carries their echoes forward into new bonds. It allows meaning to migrate, to reincarnate. And because of that, Adventure Time never feels tragic, even when it's sad. It's filled with goodbyes, but each one feels like an invitation to something new. The cycle is never cruel, it's gentle, even kind. We can feel this especially in the finale, Come Along With Me. The story concludes, but it doesn't close. Time moves on, passing the world into new hands, new heroes, new possibilities. The camera drifts upward as though time itself is taking one last look, not with sorrow, but with pride. The tale is finished, but the universe keeps breathing. That, perhaps, is the truest sign of a living storyteller. Time doesn't end stories, it lets them rest. Even the cosmic entities, beings like the cosmic owl, Prismo, or Gulb, seem to exist within time's dreamscape. They operate on vast, incomprehensible scales, but still follow its rhythm. Prismo, for instance, is a being of eternal consciousness who dreams universes into being. His existence is an echo of time's creative impulse to imagine, to shape, to remember. The cosmic owl, who visits dreams, might be time's messenger, ensuring that moments of significance are never lost. And Gulb, the embodiment of chaos, could be the part of time that allows for transformation, destruction as renewal. All of them are facets of the same consciousness, time dreaming of itself. Each being, each realm, another way for the universe to understand its own continuity. The cycle of creation and collapse becomes a form of storytelling, with time as both author and reader. And we, the audience, are witnesses to that rhythm, feeling its pulse through every frame. If you listen closely to the pacing of Adventure Time, you can almost hear it. The quiet between lines, the long, unhurried silences. The way an episode will linger on a still shot, a reflection in water, a wind passing through grass. Those are the breaths of a living narrator. Time taking a moment to feel what it's saying. And when we think of it that way, the entire series becomes something more than fiction. It becomes a meditation on existence itself, on what it means to live, to change, to remember. The voice of time speaks not only to the characters, but to us. It tells us that we too are part of this great unfolding, that our stories, however small, are also carried forward, remembered, retold in quiet ways we may never see. If time truly is the storyteller, then it means that every story ever told is a single breath of something infinite. The way it moves through Adventure Time is gentle, but deeply purposeful, never random, never hurried. Every laugh, every tear, every moment of silence becomes a brushstroke in a cosmic painting that time has been working on since the beginning. The show's episodes, when seen through this lens, are not isolated tales, but waves in the same vast sea, rolling endlessly toward the shore of meaning. What's remarkable is that this interpretation gives the quieter moments their full significance. Time isn't interested in grand displays of power or in epic finales. It finds beauty in small things, the flicker of candlelight in the tree fort, the sound of wind across the Candy Kingdom's ruins, The way Jake hums softly before falling asleep. These aren't filler moments. They're time pausing to listen to itself. The stillness between events is where the soul of the story resides. And maybe that's why Adventure Time feels timeless even now. Because time is the very essence of it. Each frame, each sound, carries the pulse of existence. The series doesn't try to trap moments, it lets them drift. It teaches us to do the same, to let things come, to let them go, and to trust that every experience, no matter how fleeting, finds its place in the great rhythm of everything. In many ways, the show's final message mirrors the nature of time itself, that endings are not true ends, but transformations. Finn and Jake's journey doesn't stop when the screen fades to white. It simply continues somewhere beyond what we can see. Time carries it forward like a story being passed from one dream to another. That gentle continuation, the refusal to end in despair or finality, is perhaps time's greatest kindness. When you think of it that way, the voice that tells us these stories could only belong to something that understands impermanence. Time knows how to speak softly about change because it is change. It knows how to cherish the present because it has seen everything slip away. The tenderness, that melancholy warmth that fills the series from beginning to end, is the sound of a storyteller who has loved every part of what it has witnessed. And so when we hear that calm, omniscient voice when the story opens on a landscape washed in morning light, or ends with a sigh beneath the stars, we are hearing time remembering. The voice doesn't belong to any one being. It belongs to everything that has ever existed, carried on the wind that moves between moments. The cadence of that voice mirrors the slow turning of the world, the endless heartbeat of creation and decay. There's something deeply peaceful about seeing time this way. It means that nothing is wasted. Even the smallest lives leave ripples that stretch into eternity. Even forgotten songs echo in the quiet corners of the cosmos. And the story of all its love, laughter, and loss becomes not just a narrative, but a prayer whispered by the universe to itself, saying, "Remember what it felt like to live." That, perhaps, is what Adventure Time has always been about. Not just adventure, not just fantasy, but remembrance. Time, as the living storyteller, invites us to look back gently, to honor what once was without clinging to it. It reminds us that stories are not meant to be trapped or owned. They are meant to flow, to be told, retold, and released back into the current. And maybe if we listen quietly enough, we can still hear that voice in the spaces between moments in our own lives, when the world slows down, when the air hums with stillness, when something familiar stirs inside us. That's the same voice that told us of the same timeless whisper that spoke through BMO's dreams, through Finn's courage, through the laughter of friends under a fading sky. Because the universe doesn't end with silence. It ends with a story being retold, softly, across the ages, time's lullaby to itself. And in that lullaby, every hero, every monster, every friend and foe still lives. They drift gently through the folds of eternity, their stories shimmering like constellations. Time keeps them all. It listens to their echoes and smiles, because it knows that even when everything fades, the memory remains. So maybe the true voice of the universe is not a person, or a machine, or even a god. Maybe it's the sound of time remembering itself softly, endlessly, with love. When we think about memory, we often imagine it as something small and personal, a collection of moments tucked quietly inside our own minds. But what if the universe itself remembers too? What if every ripple of energy, every spoken word, every dream that ever drifted through the land of still lingers somewhere, like dust in sunlight, waiting to be felt again? In Adventure Time, memory isn't only what characters carry, it's what the world carries. The ground beneath Finn's feet remembers wars long past. The rivers remember when they ran through kingdoms that no longer exist. Even the air seems to remember songs once sung by those who have long since vanished. Every piece of ooh hums softly with its own story, its own echo of something that was once alive. And maybe that's what gives the world its strange warmth, the sense that it's full of ghosts, not of sorrow but of presence. These aren't spirits haunting the land. They are the memories of existence itself, gently layered over time. When Finn and Jake wander through forgotten ruins or talk to ancient beings, they're not just exploring a post-apocalyptic world. They're moving through the collective memory of creation, through a dream that refuses to end. In a way, this connects to how the show treats history. Nothing in Adventure Time ever truly disappears. Even the strangest or smallest events have a way of returning, transform. The Mushroom War becomes myth. Myth becomes story, and story becomes the quiet background of every adventure that follows. The past and the present bleed into each other until you can't tell where one stops and the other begins. It's as though the universe itself is still remembering, still retelling the tale from its own point of view. You can sense this in the way that landscapes are drawn soft and textured, with little details hinting at something ancient beneath the surface. A rusted satellite in the distance, a road that leads nowhere, a field blooming where a city once stood. These visual traces are the universe's memory etched into its own skin. Even when no one's around to speak of what happened, the world keeps whispering. And then there's BMO. The little robot, full of childlike innocence, also embodies this idea of memory. BMO carries fragments of human technology, traces of old programming, and echoes of a civilization that built and then lost itself. Yet BMO doesn't treat these remnants as burdens. They are simply part of who they are. BMO dreams, plays, and tells stories with a kind of gentle reverence for everything that has come before. It's as if within their circuits, the universe's memories have found a way to sing again. This theme of remembrance runs deep in the show's quieter episodes. Think of Islands, where Finn searches for the truth about humanity, only to find that what remains is not a race, but a memory of what it meant to be human love, fear, curiosity, connection. The people may have gone, but their essence lingers in the world's design, in the characters who inherited their emotions and creativity. In this way, Adventure Time tells us that memory is not static. It lives, it breathes, it evolves through those who come after. Even cosmic beings like Golb or life seem tied to the act of remembering. They represent forces that record and reshape existence itself, one through chaos, the other through creation. Their eternal dance ensures that nothing ever stays forgotten, even when it's destroyed. In Ooh, memory is not a gentle photograph in a dusty album. It's a storm of color and light, reborn endlessly through the cycle of endings and beginnings. And maybe that's the real magic of the universe that remembers, the way it refuses to let go. The story doesn't fade into nothingness. It bends, shifts, and starts again. Every ending is another way of being remembered. Every silence is just a pause before the next echo begins. Somewhere, perhaps, the voice of the universe speaks softly to itself, reciting all that has ever been. Not out of longing, but love. Because to remember is to care. To hold something in memory is to say, you mattered, you still do. When you listen closely to the tone of Adventure Time, you can feel that the act of remembering is not portrayed as sadness. It's something tender, something sacred. The universe doesn't mourn its lost ages, it cherishes them. There's a difference between grief and remembrance, and the show lives in that quiet space between the two. The ruins are overgrown with flowers. The remnants of technology hum softly under new life. Even destruction becomes part of a lullaby, one that tells us that time doesn't erase, it transforms. Every era of ooh becomes another verse in that lullaby. The age of heroes, the age of the Candy Kingdom, even the strange far future where beings like Shermie and Beth wander the hills, they're all echoes of each other. The same melody sung in different voices. That's the beauty of a remembering universe. Its stories don't vanish. They echo forward, reshaping themselves for new dreamers to hear. When we see Shermie pick up Finn's sword, there's a feeling of deep, almost wordless recognition. The sword doesn't need to explain what it has been through. It carries that memory within its very form, the weight of battles, the laughter of friends, the quiet of nights under starlit skies. Shermie doesn't need to know the full story. It's enough that he feels it. This moment captures the way the universe remembers, not through information, but through emotion, through resonance. That resonance is what links every creature, every world, every fragment of story. It's the same kind of resonance you feel when you see something familiar but can't place why. The show leans into that sensation, that haunting comfort of déjà vu, because it's how the universe speaks to itself. When you recognize something you've never actually seen, maybe it's not your memory at all. Maybe it's the universe remembering through you. This idea becomes even more powerful when you think about Finn's personal journey. Throughout the series, he struggles with the tension between wanting to know everything to have answers, to solve every mystery, and learning to accept that some things can't be fully understood. In a remembering universe, understanding isn't the goal. Connection is. Finn's growth mirrors the cosmic rhythm of memory itself, from seeking control to simply listening, from grasping to holding gently. By the end, Finn becomes part of that great act of remembrance. He carries the stories of those he's met. Flame Princess, Simon, Betty, Marceline, and so many others. But he doesn't carry them as burdens. They live within him like soft lights, each one a fragment of the universe's larger memory, glowing quietly in his heart. That's why even after so much loss, the show never feels hopeless, because in remembering, there is peace. And perhaps that's what keeps ooh alive after everything, the shared remembering between all its beings. Marceline's songs keep the past alive. Princess Bubblegum's inventions rebuild what was lost. Ice King's confused ramblings hold shards of old love and tragedy. Every character, knowingly or not, plays a part in the universe's act of keeping itself whole through memory. It's not a single being who remembers. It's everyone together. There's something beautifully cyclical about that. Each generation inherits the dreams of the one before, often without realizing it. They feel the pull of old emotions. They stumble upon old relics. They repeat patterns that once defined the world, not because they're trapped, but because they're part of an ongoing remembrance. The universe keeps its continuity not through perfect record, but through feeling, through story, through connection. So when BMO tells tales in the far future, or when time itself reflects on its own voice, those aren't new stories being told. They're memories finding new shapes. The same ancient melody playing through new instruments. The universe never tires of singing to itself because every retelling adds something new. A small variation, a softer note, a gentler ending. That's how memory evolves. That's how the universe keeps dreaming. There's a kind of magic in how Adventure Time shows this continuation of memory through emotion rather than exposition. The show rarely pauses to explain its own history in full. Instead, it lets us feel it in the tone of a melody, in a glance between old friends, in a quiet shot of the horizon after a long day. Those moments don't need words because they're part of something older than language. They're the memory of the world itself, speaking softly through atmosphere and silence. It's why certain scenes feel so heavy with meaning even when nothing grand is happening. Finn sitting alone after a battle, Marceline tuning her bass in the dark, Ice King mumbling a song he half remembers. There's a sacred stillness in those moments, like the air itself remembers what came before. The show's universe, vast and strange as it is, feels alive precisely because it has feeling. Every atom hums with the recollection of life. If we imagine the universe as a great, dreaming being, then each world within it is a memory surfacing, a thought, a vision, a story being recalled. Ooh might not be the first world it has dreamed, nor will it be the last. Perhaps countless other worlds have bloomed and faded before it, each leaving behind traces like faint echoes in a song that never truly ends. That's what gives the show its unique tone, a sense that everything we see is both ancient and new, both memory and moment. In that sense, the end of the show with Shermie and Beth, long after Finn and Jake's time, isn't an ending at all. It's the next memory being dreamed, the next part of the story being remembered into existence. The cycle doesn't stop because the voice of the universe doesn't forget. It keeps speaking softly, reshaping itself through those who still listen. What's even more beautiful is that Adventure Time never forces this cosmic memory upon us. It doesn't demand that we notice it. Instead, it invites us to feel it naturally, the same way a child senses comfort in an old song without knowing why. The series trusts its audience to be part of the remembering, to sense the connections, to feel the history beneath the laughter and the absurdity. In doing so, it turns us into participants in the universe's act of memory. Each viewer who watches, who reflects, who dreams of these characters, becomes a vessel for their continued existence. The stories live on because we remember them. Every time someone recalls a scene or hums a song from the show, the universe remembers through them. In this way, Adventure Time transcends its own fiction. It becomes a living, breathing ecosystem of memory shared between world and audience. It's comforting to think that the same could be true for the characters themselves. Maybe somewhere deep in the cosmic layers of being, the memories of all who ever lived in Ooh continue to drift, like stars across a night sky that never ends. Each one glowing faintly with their own story, contributing to the collective memory of existence. Finn's courage, Jake's warmth, Marceline's melancholy, Bubblegum's relentless hope. They all shine together, part of the same gentle constellation. Even the strange cosmic entities, Prismo, the cosmic owl, the time room, all play their roles in the same remembering. They exist outside of ordinary perception, but their actions are guided by the same principle, to preserve the balance between forgetting and remembering. Prismo, for instance, embodies the idea of memory. As possibility, every wish he grants becomes a thread of what could have been, stored somewhere in the folds of time. The cosmic owl, through dreams, delivers fragments of memory in symbolic form, letting mortals glimpse the echoes of their futures and pasts intertwined. And Gulb, often seen as pure destruction, might not be outside the cycle either. Even his chaos is a kind of remembering the tearing apart of form so that new memory can emerge. Destruction is how the universe clears space for more stories to be told. In the great balance of memory, forgetting is necessary, but it's never total. The fragments always remain, scattered like seeds, waiting to bloom again in another time, another form. This is the beauty of a universe that remembers. It finds harmony between creation and decay. Nothing is lost forever. Every broken piece becomes the soil from which new stories grow. Every silence is part of the melody. Every ending is another way to keep the memory alive. And when you think about it, isn't that the most comforting idea of all? That nothing and no one is ever truly forgotten. The universe remembers through us, through its worlds, through the pulse of existence itself. It holds everything, the laughter, the pain, the wonder, not as a burden, but as a collection of treasures. And as long as the story continues to be told, in any form, it lives. The act of remembering becomes the act of being. If we close our eyes for a moment and imagine the universe as something with a pulse, a breath, a quiet awareness that stretches across eternity, then we might begin to sense how deeply it remembers. Every sound we make, every thought we send into the air, every story we tell, becomes a vibration that never truly disappears. It drifts outward, softening over eons, until it becomes part of that great cosmic hum, the same hum that fills the silence of Adventure Time's skies. That hum is memory. It's what binds together everything that has ever existed. When BMO tells a story in the far future, or when time itself speaks through the rhythm of an episode, those voices are part of that hum. The storyteller doesn't have to be a single being. It can be the entire universe remembering itself through countless tongues, countless dreams. What's remarkable is how Adventure Time shows this in ways that feel natural, almost effortless. The way color shifts in a scene, or how music lingers after a moment ends, carries that same energy of remembrance. It's the show's way of saying, this mattered. Every frame, every silence, every fleeting moment is part of something larger, something eternal. The story remembers even when the characters don't. Think about Simon and Betty, a love story that spans universes, constantly reshaped by time, magic, and loss. Their journey isn't just about love enduring, it's about love as memory. Even when Simon forgets himself, even when Betty becomes something beyond human, the memory of what they were together ripples through the cosmos. It touches everyone. From Marceline's sorrowful songs to Galb's strange transformations, love becomes the universe's most powerful form of remembrance, an emotion so strong it refuses to fade. This is where the tone of Adventure Time feels so profoundly human. For all its surrealism and cosmic depth, the show never loses that thread of warmth. It never forgets that memory, at its heart, is an act of affection. When we remember, we're saying to the past, you mattered. You still do. That's what makes the show's quietest moments. Finn's soft smiles, Jake's laughter, Marceline's whispered lyrics feel eternal. They are tiny offerings to the universe's memory, pieces of love gifted back into the infinite. And perhaps that's why so many viewers feel such a strange peace when the series ends. The final episode doesn't tie everything up neatly, doesn't try to explain what happens to everyone or why. Instead, it gives us a feeling of continuation, of life going on, memory carrying forward, stories being retold. It's not about closure. It's about flow. That's what a remembering universe would want, not stillness, but motion. The story moving softly into the next dream. Even the theme song, simple, cheerful, and endlessly nostalgic, becomes part of that cosmic remembering. Every time it plays, it's like the universe is smiling at itself, a gentle reminder of all that has been lived, lost, and loved. The melody doesn't just open an episode. It calls back every adventure, every goodbye, every dawn in ooh. Its memory set to music, a lullaby that wraps around the entire cosmos. And if we think about how the series lives on beyond its own ending in our hearts, in the art people make, in the theories we whisper to each other, then the universe's act of remembrance becomes something we actively join in. Every person who holds even a single scene in their mind becomes part of the ongoing voice of the universe. It's not just time or BMO or some cosmic being telling the story anymore. It's us. We become echoes in the great remembering. That's the quiet miracle of storytelling itself. It lets memory transcend flesh, transcend time, transcend endings. The story becomes a bridge between worlds, between those who lived it, those who dream it, and those who will one day discover it. In Adventure Time, that bridge stretches across all of existence. From the dawn of O to its farthest future, everything is connected by that single, gentle thread, remembrance. And so when we return to this world in our minds, we aren't just recalling a cartoon or a tale. We're touching the same current that runs through the stars, the same current that carries all memory forward. We're adding our breath to the hum of the universe. Because in the end, that's what the universe that remembers truly is, a vast, infinite heart, beating softly in the dark. It listens to every story, holds every voice, cherishes every spark of being, and it whispers endlessly the same tender promise that Adventure Time left us with. Nothing ever really ends. Everything lives on, remembered in the quiet between moments, carried forever by the voice of the universe. There's a gentle mystery that lingers at the edge of every story, a quiet question that hums beneath the words. Who is really telling this tale? We've listened to voices echoing through time, through machines, through the living pulse of the universe itself. But what if the truth is even more intimate, more poetic? What if the story of Adventure Time, of Ooh, of Finn and Jake, of everything that ever was, is not being told by someone, but through something greater? What if the universe isn't just remembering, but dreaming? Imagine it for a moment. Not a storyteller sitting by a fire, not a machine replaying its code, not even time itself whispering to the stars, but a dream. A vast, eternal dream that began when existence first opened its eyes. Within that dream, worlds formed and dissolved, rivers sang their first notes, and life began to imagine itself. Adventure Time becomes one of those dreams, a flicker of meaning in the infinite sleep of the cosmos. This idea feels fitting, doesn't it? The series has always blurred the line between waking and dreaming. Characters drift between realities as easily as closing their eyes. The walls between what is real and what is imagined are soft, almost fluid. Jake's magic stretches him into impossible forms. Prismo lives inside a dream that creates universes. Finn often awakens into new versions of himself. Even the laws of physics seem to hum with imagination, bending not toward reason, but toward wonder. If the universe is dreaming, then these moments aren't accidents. They're reminders, soft nudges from the dream itself that say, you are part of this story too. Every time Finn grows, every time Jake laughs, every time a new world is born out of chaos, the dream continues to shape itself. It's not just being told, it's telling itself. Think of BMO again, sitting quietly in the far future, telling stories to ghosts of stars and sand. That image feels like a dream's reflection, something so delicate, so eternal, that it can only exist in the mind of the universe. BMO isn't reciting facts. They're dreaming out loud, keeping the vision alive through memory and imagination. In that way, BMO becomes the perfect vessel for the universe's dream, pure-hearted, curious, filled with love and playfulness. Not a ruler or a prophet, but a dreamer keeping the story warm. And perhaps that's the ultimate truth of Adventure Time. That creation itself is a kind of dreaming. The Candy Kingdom, the Ice Kingdom, the endless oceans, the stars and comets, all shimmer with that same dreamlike texture. The logic of Ooh isn't bound by strict laws. It flows like thought, like imagination, shaping itself moment to moment. Dreams don't follow straight lines. They swirl, they shift. They remember themselves in fragments. That's why the show feels both Whimsical and deeply wise, it carries the language of dreams, where meaning is felt rather than explained. Even the way the show moves through time mirrors the flow of dreaming. Episodes skip across eras, reveal glimpses of futures that may or may not come true, and often circle back to earlier emotions rather than events. In dreams, we don't experience time as a chain. We experience it as a feeling unfolding all at once. Adventure Time does the same. It invites us to drift through the story rather than chase its ending. If this universe is indeed dreaming, then Finn and Jake's friendship becomes its heartbeat, the rhythm that keeps the dream alive. Every adventure, every moment of laughter, every quiet lesson learned by the campfire is part of that rhythm. Their bond is the thread that ties everything together, not through logic, but through love. Because dreams, like the universe, are not sustained by structure, they're sustained by emotion, by what is felt deeply enough to become real. And maybe that's why, even after the story ends, the dream continues to ripple outward. The show may have finished its final episode, but the dream hasn't stopped. It lives in every memory, every retelling, every heart that still carries its warmth. Just as the universe dreams of life, we dream of stories, and in that shared act of dreaming, we become part of the same cosmic storyteller. If we accept that the universe dreams itself into being, then every story becomes a reflection of that dream, every creature, every song, every small act of kindness. In Adventure Time, this becomes clear through how reality seems to breathe. Nothing is static. Mountains grow faces, clouds speak. Even inanimate objects shimmer with quiet awareness, as if they're awake in their own way. The entire world feels like a lucid dream, where the boundaries between imagination and existence have dissolved completely. This dreamlike quality gives the show its strange, comforting unpredictability. One moment can hold joy, the next sorrow, and both can coexist without contradiction. Just like in a dream, emotions shift like the tide, not because the story is confused, but because it's alive. The dream is exploring itself. It's learning what it means to love, to change, to let go. In that sense, Finn's journey feels less like a quest for answers and more like the process of a dream discovering its own meaning. From the first episode to the last, Finn is trying to understand who he is, where he came from, what he's meant to do, how to carry the weight of his own heart. But what he ultimately learns is not a final truth. It's acceptance. The understanding that he is part of something far greater, a story that will keep unfolding long after he's gone. The dream doesn't end when he wakes. It continues through others, through everything that remembers him. This idea gently changes how we see the entire world of Ooh. Every story we've seen, every strange event or side character might simply be another thought flickering through the universe's mind. Even Gulb, that embodiment of chaos, might not be an antagonist in the traditional sense, but rather the dream's way of resetting itself, of shaking off old shapes to make room for new ones. Dreams must sometimes destroy themselves to stay alive. That's not cruelty. It's renewal. The same can be said for life, the cosmic being who mirrors Gulb. If Gulb represents forgetting, life represents remembering. The two are not enemies, but balancing forces, keeping the dream in motion. Together, they ensure that the story never freezes into one version of itself. Life brings new images, new thoughts. Gulb dissolves what has been imagined too long. Creation and dissolution are the inhale and exhale of the dreaming universe. And within that rhythm, BMO's storytelling takes on new meaning. Their voice, gentle and rhythmic, feels like the dream whispering itself awake, remembering its favorite parts, reshaping them for the joy of telling. BMO's stories don't need to be perfectly accurate because in dreams, truth isn't measured by detail but by feeling. What matters is the emotion, the warmth of connection, the spark of wonder, the comfort of remembering something beautiful, even if you can't recall why. When BMO speaks, you can sense that they aren't just retelling the adventures of Finn and Jake. They're participating in the ongoing creation of the universe. Their words ripple outward, keeping the dream alive through the sound and imagination. That's why even the far future, in which BMO lives, doesn't feel cold or empty. The dream continues. The voice remains. The universe still remembers itself through the act of telling. And perhaps that's what Adventure Time is inviting us to see, that we too are part of the dream. The act of watching, of listening, of feeling moved by a story is the same as dreaming. We lend our energy to the universe's remembering. When we laugh with Finn or ache for Simon, we become part of the dream's emotional current. In that moment, the universe experiences itself through us. It tells its story by living it through the hearts of those who care to listen. The dream doesn't belong to any single voice. It flows between all of them, between us and the world, between creation and decay, between memory and forgetting. And somewhere in that endless tender motion, the universe finds peace in its own telling. If the universe truly dreams itself into being, then every voice within it, BMO's, Finn's, even yours, becomes part of the same eternal whisper. Each voice is a fragment of the larger consciousness, each echo another way for existence to hear itself. And maybe that's the secret heart of Adventure Time. It's not just a story about heroes or monsters or friendship, but about awareness itself, learning how to sing. The dream doesn't need a fixed narrator because everything narrates in its own way. The wind narrates by how it moves through the trees. The ocean narrates by how it reflects the stars. And beings like Finn and Jake narrate simply by living, by choosing, laughing, hurting, and healing. Every action becomes a sentence in the great cosmic language. Every life becomes a verse in the dream's poem. That's why there's no final ending to Adventure Time. Even when the series closes, even when the world of Ooh fades into silence, the voice remains. You can still feel it when you think about the show, can't you? That strange mix of nostalgia and serenity. That unspoken sense that something vast and kind is still humming beneath it all. That feeling is the voice, the one that keeps telling the story softly, endlessly, within the quiet of your mind. In the far future, when BMO tells the story of Finn and Jake to the tiny robot, it isn't just a flashback or a history lesson. It's a ritual, the dream's way of reaffirming itself. BMO speaks, the story lives, and for a moment, the universe remembers who it was. That is the cycle that never breaks. The voice continues, and because it refuses to end, but because it cannot end. It exists wherever there is wonder, wherever someone chooses to listen. It's the same with time itself. Maybe time is not just a mechanism that measures motion, but a living entity that reflects on its own unfolding. It watches itself, records itself, and retells its memories through those who exist within it. When BMO says, "Sometimes my memories get things mixed up," that could be the voice of time itself, not malfunctioning, but dreaming. Because that's what dreams do. They blur, merge, reshape. They turn chaos into poetry. Think about how the series plays with memory and meaning. The world of Ooh is filled with ruins of the past, broken machines, melted cities, forgotten gods. But these fragments aren't presented with despair. They shimmer with beauty, as though the universe itself finds tenderness in remembering what once was. The Great Mushroom War isn't just tragedy. It's part of the universe's own cycle of transformation. Out of destruction came a land of absurdity and life. Out of chaos came meaning. The universe dreams itself into new shapes after every loss. And that's why, in the end, the voice of the universe isn't trying to teach anything. It's not guiding us toward a single moral or truth. It's simply sharing what it feels like to exist, to love, to change, to fade, to return. That's what makes it meditative rather than instructive. It's a lullaby, not a lecture. It asks nothing of you but to listen and feel. So when you hear BMO's soft tone, or see the colors of glowing like watercolors on the edge of sleep, you're hearing the hum of creation itself, a sound older than time, still singing through circuitry, through magic, through thought. That hum says, everything was, and is, and will be, and it's all okay. Maybe that's why the world of feels both surreal and deeply personal. Because in some way, it is your dream too. Every time you watch, you lend your consciousness to the telling. The voice uses your eyes, your ears, your heart to speak itself into being again. You become a temporary vessel of the story, a dream within a dream. And in that sense, the universe doesn't just remember through BMO or time, or even the narrator. It remembers through you. You, the listener, the dreamer half awake. The quiet soul letting the story drift through your thoughts, like starlight through mist. You are part of the echo. You are part of the remembering. As you listen, the boundaries blur between fiction and truth, between show and dream, between the voice of the universe and your own. For a few gentle minutes, you and the cosmos are one and the same, whispering softly to each other. I am still here. I still remember. I am still dreaming. And so, as the universe dreams itself, we begin to notice the subtle ways it weaves its stories. The mountains, the rivers, the stars, and even the smallest blades of grass carry memories, echoes of moments long past, carrying their warmth into the present. Every laugh, every tear, every whispered promise that ever occurred in continues to resonate in the soft fabric of the cosmos, as if the universe itself were replaying a lullaby meant for no one and everyone all at once. Think of Marceline, strumming her bass in the fading light. Her melodies aren't merely songs, they are vessels of remembrance. Each note vibrates with memory, carrying fragments of Simon's love, the fleeting joys of her friends, the sorrows of ages past, and the quiet hope of days yet to come. The music doesn't demand that we understand it fully. It asks only that we feel it, and in doing so, we become part of the dream, participants in the act of remembering that stretches across all of time and space. The beauty of the universe as a dreaming storyteller is that nothing is truly lost. Even chaos becomes meaningful. Even endings become beginnings. Galb's destructive nature, at first terrifying, transforms into a necessary clearing away for the dream to shed old forms so that new stories may emerge. In destruction, there is creativity. In forgetting, there is the seed of memory. The dream doesn't erase, it evolves, always shaping itself into something new while honoring everything it has already imagined. Every character in plays a part in this eternal remembering, whether they realize it or not. Finn, through courage and curiosity, allows the dream to explore its own heart. Jake, through love and loyalty, shows how flexibility and compassion keep the dream gentle and resilient. Princess Bubblegum preserves knowledge, understanding that memory can be a guiding light. Even Ice King, in his confusion and loss, reminds us that memory can be fragile, yet infinitely precious. Each life, each choice, each fleeting thought contributes to the melody that the universe hums softly, carrying its own stories through the endless night. When BMO retells the adventures of Finn and Jake in the far future, It is more than a recounting. It is a reaffirmation of the dream. The universe, through BMO, chooses to remember itself, to relive its favorite moments, and to ensure that even as time stretches on, the essence of those stories remains. And we, as observers, become part of that act. By watching, by listening, by feeling, we lend our own consciousness to the dream. We become witnesses to eternity, small but vital notes in the lullaby that the universe whispers to itself. And as we trace this thread further, it becomes clear that the universe's dream is not linear. It does not demand that moments occur in a strict sequence, or that beginnings and endings follow conventional logic. It flows more like a river of light, bending around mountains of possibility, dipping into pools of memory and reflecting the stars of imagination. Time may measure the passing of days, but the dream exists beyond measurement, beyond expectation. It simply is a continuous, living, breathing story that tells itself. Even the smallest moments in the series take on a new depth in this light. The quiet glances between friends, the gentle wind across the plains, the soft glow of a candle in a darkened room, all of these are the dream speaking softly, reminding us that even what seems ordinary is infused with meaning. Nothing is trivial, nothing is fleeting. Everything is remembered, carried along in the current of the universe's awareness, resonating with an eternal tenderness that transcends words. And perhaps that is why, after all the adventures, after the laughter and tears, after the battles and quiet moments of reflection, the world of Ooh feels so complete, so full, so alive. It isn't just a place of imagination. It is a living dream, a testament to memory, a lullaby sung by the universe itself. And as we lie here, listening to the echoes of these stories, we become part of that dream, part of that remembering. So as you settle into your own quiet space tonight, know that the universe is dreaming, that it remembers, and that somewhere within that infinite dream, every story, every smile, every whisper of magic lives on. We are part of it, just as the dream is part of us. And in that knowing there is a comfort, a gentle warmth that wraps around the soul and lets the mind drift softly, peacefully into the night. Good night.